When I gave birth, I wasn't in a hospital bed surrounded by the comforting hum of machines or the gentle hand of my husband in mine. No. I was in the back seat of my brother's Honda, screaming through contractions while he sped down an icy Colorado highway, trying to reach the nearest ER before I bled out. My husband? He never answered the phone. Not the first time. Not the 16th. What happened next changed everything, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive him. It all started 6 days before I went into labor, when Nate, my husband of 4 years, casually looked over his mug of coffee and said, "I think we should get a paternity test once the baby's born." I remember the way my fork stopped midair, the eggs on my plate suddenly cold. "Excuse me?" He said it so flatly. Like he was asking for almond milk at a cafe. No build-up. No suspicion. Just that. Now I work from home full-time. My social life is basically Zoom calls, cooking tutorials, and chats with my brother Tyler. There was no reason for him to say that, none. No strange texts. No late nights out. Nothing. I wasn't even showing much anymore. Just round enough to feel my daughter kick if I lay still. When I told Nate he was accusing me of cheating, he didn't even blink. "I'm not saying you did. I just want to be sure." I felt like I was watching our trust dissolve one molecule at a time. For 3 days, we kept circling the same poisonous conversation. Every time he brought it up, my stomach tightened, not from pregnancy, but from anxiety. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I cried once in the shower so hard I almost slipped. Every word he said chipped away at me until I couldn't even recognize the way he looked at me anymore. Not with love or warmth, but calculation. By day 4 I left. I packed a duffel bag and walked out. Tyler picked me up without asking questions. I don't even think he shut the door before wrapping me in a hug. The next morning, I returned to our house while Nate was at work. I needed clothes, baby things, my prenatal vitamins, things that shouldn't have felt like smuggling. Every room felt like a war zone, every picture frame like a lie. And then, in the middle of sorting baby socks, it hit me. A sharp, tearing pain like my body was being ripped apart from the inside out. My knees buckled. I reached for the wall, barely catching myself. Labor. I grabbed my phone and called Nate. Straight to voicemail. Called again. And again. 16 times. 16. I left messages, gasping, sobbing, telling him I was in labor, alone, bleeding, scared. No answer. Just silence and a robotic woman telling me to try again later. My hands trembled so badly I could barely tap Tyler's number. "I'm coming," he said before I even finished my sentence. He called Nate 6 times while racing across town, speakerphone blaring in the car. Still nothing. No answer. Not even a text. We didn't make it to the hospital in time. My daughter was born on the side of I-76, in the freezing back seat of Tyler's car. He held my hand the entire time while his wife Olivia, who's a nurse, coached me over speaker. She arrived just as I passed out from blood loss. By the time I was wheeled into emergency surgery, I was told I was lucky to be alive. But I wasn't the same. And neither was my relationship. When I woke up, drugged and groggy, Tyler was holding my phone. My husband still hadn't called. 10 hours later, he finally did. He asked why I hadn't returned his calls. Tyler looked at me, then answered the phone without hesitation. "This is Tyler," he said coldly. "She didn't make it." Then he hung up. That was the moment I realized, my brother may have lied, but only to give Nate 10 minutes of the same fear I'd lived with for 10 hours. And I'm not sure I blame him for it. I was still half sedated when I saw him. Nate. His face ghostly pale, eyes wild, storming through the double doors like he was the one who'd just survived childbirth on the side of a highway. "Where is she? What the hell is going on?" His voice rang down the corridor. It was the first time I'd seen him since I left. And he didn't come in gently. No apology. No remorse. Just fury. The hospital staff tried to calm him down. A nurse placed a gentle hand on his shoulder and said, Sir, she's just come out of surgery, you need to wait until she's stabilized. But he shoved past them until security escorted him back out into the hallway. From the hospital bed, I could barely focus on the chaos. My insides felt like fire. My brain was a fog of grief, morphine, and trauma. I heard murmurs about blood loss, about emergency hysterectomy, about how close it all had been. And I remember thinking, faintly, I can't even give my daughter a sibling now. Tyler never left my side. He was the one who signed consent forms when I couldn't hold a pen. The one who made sure Olivia stayed the night. The one who brought me ice chips and whispered, "She's beautiful. She looks just like you." It was the next morning when the full weight of it landed. Nate had been allowed in after I signed off, half conscious, still trembling. He sat down beside me, eyes bloodshot, fists clenched. I thought maybe he'd cry. Maybe he'd say I'm sorry or I failed you. Instead, he whispered, "Your brother is out of control." My pulse monitor jumped. "What?" "He told me you were dead." He hissed, like that was the great betrayal. "Do you know what that did to me? I thought you were gone." I stared at him, lips dry. "You were gone." That shut him up. He looked at the floor like it held the answers. "I didn't get your calls. I had my phone on silent. I needed time to think after the fight." Time to think? My voice cracked, hoarse from dehydration and screaming hours earlier. "You needed time while I was hemorrhaging in the back seat of a car?" He didn't respond. Just shook his head like the details were inconvenient. Then he tried to make it about the prank. "He lied to me. You can't just let that go. I called you 16 times. My voice was steady now. Hollow. You didn't pick up. I was angry. So was I said. But I still thought of you first. That was the moment I realized Nate wasn't sorry I almost died. He was just mad he wasn't the first to know. In the following days, he didn't help with feedings or sit beside me while I tried to latch our daughter through the tears. It was Tyler bringing me warm compresses, Olivia showing me how to swaddle. Nate hovered like a guest waiting for the right moment to scold the host. And then came the final blow. 3 days after I was discharged, while I sat half awake in the nursery chair holding our daughter, Nate walked in with his phone in hand. "I talked to my mom," he said coldly. "She says if your brother doesn't apologize, we're done going over there." I blinked. "Over there? You mean the place where I gave birth on a car seat?" He ignored that. "I need you to tell him to say sorry. For what he said. For what he made me feel." I put the baby down gently in her bassinet and turned toward him. "You weren't there. Tyler was. Olivia delivered our daughter. And you want me to apologize for how scared you were?" He looked wounded. Like I'd smacked him. But I wasn't finished. "Where were you, Nate?" I asked. "Tell me. Was your phone on silent for 10 hours? Did the guilt keep you from looking? Or were you just hoping I'd go away quietly so you wouldn't have to admit you were wrong?" He didn't answer. He just walked out. That night, I moved into the guest room with the baby. I haven't moved back since. By the end of that week, our home felt like a museum of broken promises, quiet, polished, and entirely dead inside. Nate started tiptoeing around like some kind of emotional hostage, bringing me cups of tea I didn't ask for, hovering at the nursery door, waiting for I don't even know what. Redemption? Gratitude? Some miraculous reset where I'd forget he wasn't there when I needed him most? Instead, I just watched him like he was furniture. Present. Functional. But utterly untrustworthy. I didn't yell. I didn't fight. I didn't even cry. I think that scared him more than anything. One night, I caught him standing in the doorway while I fed our daughter. His voice was low, almost sheepish. "Have you thought any more about the paternity test?" I swear, if I hadn't been holding our daughter, I might have thrown something. I didn't answer. I just pulled the blanket up over her head and whispered, "Do you even hear yourself?" He didn't bring it up again. But the damage had already rotted through the walls. The next day, I got a text from his mother. I heard about the prank your brother pulled. Absolutely disgusting. You need to cut him off. This behavior reflects badly on you too. I read it twice. Then once more, just to be sure I hadn't hallucinated the tone. That afternoon, Tyler stopped by with Olivia. He didn't say much. Just made sure I had everything I needed: diapers, freezer meals, fresh socks. His wife held the baby so I could take my first uninterrupted shower in days. When I came out, Tyler was on the couch, scrolling through his phone like he didn't have a single care in the world. He glanced up at me, and I knew he knew what was happening between Nate and me. He didn't ask about it. Didn't press. He just stood, kissed the top of my head gently, and said, "We're just down the street if you need anything." The contrast between him and Nate was jarring. One had shown up without being asked. The other couldn't be bothered when I was bleeding out. And now Nate wanted to be the victim. He moped. Complained to his friends. Told his mom I was cold and distant. That I was letting my brother run our relationship. Like I hadn't almost died bringing his child into the world. Like my grief had an expiration date. The worst part? He still wouldn't explain why he didn't answer the phone. No real excuse. Just vague allusions to needing space or not knowing how to respond. "I thought you were just being dramatic," he once muttered under his breath, like labor was a mood swing. He wasn't even mad about the prank itself anymore. He was mad that my brother did something, while he did nothing. And still, he wanted me to play peacekeeper. To fix it all. To schedule therapy, organize family dinners, ask Tyler for a truce. As if I had the energy to build a bridge back to a man who set fire to the foundation. That night, while feeding the baby, I caught myself whispering to her, "Don't marry a man who disappears when it counts." The words were out before I could stop them. It scared me how natural it felt. It was Olivia who finally told me the truth. We were sitting on the porch while the baby napped, sipping lukewarm coffee and pretending things were normal. She's not the kind of person who pries, but she also doesn't believe in letting silence fester into infection. "He was at a poker game, wasn't he?" she asked casually. I blinked. "What?" "The day you went into labor. Nate wasn't thinking or sleeping through it, was he?" She said it gently, without judgment, but with just enough edge that I felt it slice straight through the haze. What are you talking about?" I asked, even though part of me already knew. Olivia looked down, then slowly pulled out her phone. She scrolled for a moment, then handed it to me. A tag photo. Taken the afternoon I went into labor. Nate, drink in hand, sitting at a folding table with 5 other guys, chips piled in front of him, laughing. One of his old college buddies had posted it with the caption, "Boys' Day. Phones off. Vibes only. Sorry ladies." Timestamped, 1:27 p.m. The same hour I was on the floor of our bedroom, screaming into a towel and calling him over and over. Phones off. I handed the phone back in silence. Olivia didn't push. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just walked upstairs, picked up my wedding ring from the nightstand, and placed it gently in the center of Nate's dresser. Right between his cologne and his unopened stack of New Dad books. He came home that night like nothing had happened. Tossed his keys on the counter. Looked at the ring. Blinked. "What's this?" I didn't even turn around. "You turned your phone off," I said flatly. There was a pause. Then a laugh. Nervous. Weak. It was just a guy's night. I needed a break. That's all. "You needed a break," I repeated. "So you took one. From me. From her. From your whole damn life." He walked around the island, trying to get in front of me. "I didn't know you were in labor. You didn't care to find out." He opened his mouth to speak again, but I cut him off. "And then, after 10 hours of silence, after our daughter was born on the side of the road and I nearly died, you asked why I didn't pick your calls up?" His mouth closed. He stood there, hands on the counter, breathing heavily. "I made a mistake, okay? But your brother, he took it too far. He told me you were dead. I turned to face him for the first time in days. For 10 minutes, I said quietly. You were scared for 10 minutes. I was alone, in labor, hemorrhaging for 10 hours. That shut him up again. And now your mother is sending me texts calling my family cruel? I laughed, bitter. She can save it. Tell her to enjoy Thanksgiving without us. He started to say something else, but I walked past him into the nursery, shut the door, and locked it behind me. That night, I opened my laptop and emailed a divorce attorney. The next morning, I checked our medical proxy forms and saw his name still listed as my emergency contact. I replaced it with Tyler's. Then I called the lawyer again. The divorce papers were ready in less than 2 weeks. Simple, clean. No custody battle, he hadn't asked. No fight over the house, he'd been sleeping at his mother's. The silence between us had calcified. He didn't even try to explain anymore. Maybe he thought if he waited long enough, I'd forget. Maybe he didn't realize I already had, just not the way he wanted. But it was what came after I filed that surprised me. His mother showed up. Not at my door, no, she's too proper for that. She cornered me at the grocery store. I was standing in line with formula and teething drops when she appeared behind me, sunglasses on, lips pinched tight. You're tearing this family apart, she said without preamble. I didn't respond. Just turned to scan the next item. You've humiliated my son. You made him think his wife was dead. Your brother is. I turned and looked her dead in the eye. Your son missed the birth of his daughter. Not because of a prank. Because he turned off his phone for 10 hours and never once thought about me. She flinched like I'd slapped her. I leaned closer, voice calm, level. He had one job. One. I left my groceries on the belt and walked out. Let her explain that to whatever social circle she vented to. That night, I posted a short update on social media, something private for close friends. We're safe. We're starting over. Thank you to those who've shown up. Especially those who didn't have to. I included a photo of me and my daughter curled up on the couch, her tiny fingers wrapped around mine. No Nate. No mention of him. Just a thank you to the people who mattered. A few days later, I had the paternity test done, not for him, but for the legal paperwork. He was the father, of course. There had never been a doubt in my mind. Only his. The results were delivered electronically. I forwarded them straight to my lawyer with a note, for the file. I'm done explaining myself. Tyler came by that night with Olivia and tacos. I told him everything, about the papers, about the grocery store ambush, about the final, hollow apology Nate had texted that morning. I know I screwed up. I still want to try for her sake. I showed it to Tyler. He read it. Then looked at me. You don't owe him your healing, he said simply. I nodded. I know. He reached into his pocket and slid something across the table. It was the tiny stuffed lamb I'd packed in my hospital bag. The one I'd forgotten in the chaos of labor. I kept it for her, he said. Figured you'd want her to have it one day. I cried for the first time in weeks. Not out of grief, but release. I had spent so long trying to make a marriage look whole that I forgot what real, unconditional love actually felt like. And it felt like this. Like my brother driving me to the ER with his hands shaking but steady. Like Olivia holding my daughter before I could. Like warm food, returned lambs, and quiet strength. Nate never came back to fight for us. He didn't show up at court. He didn't protest the medical proxy update. He just disappeared. Like he had practice. Maybe he thought it would hurt more. Maybe he hoped it would. But it didn't. Because what I learned in that backseat, bleeding, panicked, and praying my daughter would survive, was this. Love shows up. Love answers the phone. Love doesn't need a test to believe you.